Hi everybody, welcome again to the Bible Project podcast. And here we are working together through the call of Abraham. And we're covering Genesis chapter 12 and the first 3 verses today. Now you'll remember last time when we introduced this section, we were told that Abram was originally based in this place called Ur of the Chaldees. We also discovered at that point that Ur was in fact a region, a centre of idolatry. The brief section that preceded chapter 12, those verses we read at the end of chapter 11, were given in order to demonstrate that Abraham came out of a pagan, idolatrous background. But today we're going to pick up the story at chapter 12 and his specific call. And this, my friends, is very important. This is one of the key points in the Bible. Chapter 12 verse 1 tells us, "The Lord said to Abraham, go from your country, your people, and your father's household to the land I will show you." When Abraham was first called, remember he was living in Ur, which had been described earlier in Genesis as a beautiful, luscious land. Now, in ancient time, Ur was a seaport which sat at the head of an estuary, which was enriched greatly by trade that was moving through it. There were also 2 great rivers feeding through out from Ur, and that was the Tigris and the Euphrates. They were nearby. They bordered the whole area of the estuary, and they watered the ground, which produced rich soil, which was great for producing really abundant crops. Historical records show that corn, apples, grapes, pomegranates all grew and grow naturally in the wild in that area. So this is a really fertile area comparing to the neighboring Arabian desert, which lies inland and to the east. So the question you might be asking is, why have I brought up the nature of the city? Because I'm needing to point out to you that this is the place that God tells Abraham to leave. Ur was a great place to live, but God still says to Abraham, you've got to get out of town, my friend. And he also says, I'm not going to tell you where you're going, but just obey me and do that. And he leaves that great city, and he sets off without even knowing where he's going to. No wonder we might say he's called the father of the faithful. Doesn't this demonstrate that? In the Abrahamic stories, one of the things that maintains Abraham's promise with God is his continual willingness to sacrifice. And this sacrificial issue is important. It tells me today that you and I are not really committed to something unless we're willing to make a sacrifice to do it or for it. Commitment and sacrifice are completely interlinked. Some might say they're almost the same thing. So God here calls Abram to leave Ur, and in doing so, God then comes and makes several promises in the verses that follow. Verses 2 and 3 say this: I will make you a great nation, and I will bless you. I will make your name great, and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And all the people on earth will be blessed through you. Now, we're going to look at these promises in the next episode, but basically, he commands him to leave and go to a land he's never even seen. But if you do that, God says, if you go to that land, you're going to be blessed, regardless of how the situation may look to you at the moment. Now, you may have noticed that when I read those verses of the blessing, the word you appears 7 times in those 2 verses. But within that, there are 3 types of promises here. There is the individual promise to Abraham, and then there are the promises concerning his descendants, who will become a nation. And then there are also some universal promises given to Abram, through which all of us, there is the potential to bless everyone, all the people on earth. Let's look at the promises for a second, but just the individual promise this episode. And the first is that God promised to bless Abraham and to make his name widely known. And he promises to bless others through him. And he promises to bless those who bless him and curse those who curse him. By doing so, he will make Abraham's name great. Well, clearly, when it comes to that initial promise of making Abraham's name great, the fact remains that Abraham is still one of the most well-known names in the world. He is still to this day highly regarded by Jews, Christians, and by Muslims. He is honored in all three of the world's religions, and all of them trace their lineage back to Abraham in one way or another. That, my friends, is the fulfillment of God's promise that he is going to make his name great, well known. He's going to make his name great, and that is exactly what has happened. So that's the individual promise, to bless him and to make him well known, to make his name great. We look at the wider context of the following promises next time. Thanks for joining me. Quick reminder, you can always get a transcript of any of these podcasts in the episode's notes section of any version of the podcast you might be listening to. And there's also lots of links there to other places like the compilation weekly podcast, which compiles this and some other teaching I'm doing, along with links to the Facebook page, the YouTube channel, and also places where you can download the music or even support the ministry if you wish to do so. So thanks very much for joining me, and I'll see you back here again very soon. Bye for now.